Low-key geek. Hey, he's a low-key geek. He tries to be out there when he wants to be, but hey, he's a low-key geek.
Hey! What's going on, party people? It is Renee, Low-Key Geek, back live. I better be careful with what I say, or else I am going to get flagged and my video is going to get deleted, thanks to Disney. But more on that in a little bit. Happy Friday, y'all. I hope you had a great week. It is Memorial Day weekend, and a little unusual moment in time for us to have such a long 3 day weekend. Normally, this will be the weekend where everyone's gearing up. First unofficial weekend of summer. Beaches are open. People are getting ready with their barbecues and having parties and this and that. But doesn't look like that's going to be 100% the case this weekend. I don't know wherever you guys are, but here in New York, most of the beaches are technically closed. You are allowed to kind of walk around the sand and sit down for a minute, but you have to obviously stay away from people. Got to keep no congregating, no swimming, no parties, no food and eating, and definitely no barbecues. So, whatever it is that you guys decide to do this weekend, and I know there's a good amount of you who are probably gonna not adhere to these rules, or maybe it's just different where you are in your part of in your neck of the woods. But just be safe, do whatever you need to do to have fun, but be mindful of others, and practice your smarts, and wear that mask, and wash your hands. That's all you could say and do. But that being said, yesterday was an interesting learning experience for me. um, for those of you who were able to tune in for the brief 20 minutes that I was on, you were able to see something akin to this. This was my attempt to do a stream, a charity stream, also, mind you, of Star Wars Empire Strikes Back in celebration of the 40th anniversary. I was doing this to share a classic movie with a bunch of people like yourselves. I was attempting to stream the original theatrical version of the movie, but 20 minutes in. Oh, and mind you, also, I was trying to raise money for a good cause. But 20 minutes into the stream, YouTube and Disney said, nope, I don't think so, and took me down. Basically, I guess I was too naive to think that a private stream that wasn't open to the public would be okay to do something like this, but alas, it was not. Then I attempted to try to do this on Facebook Live, and it allowed me to do about 25 minutes into the movie, and then Disney strikes again and turned off my stream. So I apologize to those who were expecting to watch a great movie with me, to experience the moment. However, there were a good amount of you who was able to tune in briefly and even donated for the cause I was raising money for. So I want to express my appreciation for your generosity. And I will update a video. I'll post a video online over the weekend to kind of give an update of what I am doing, or at least how much money was raised so far to date, but what I am doing to kind of help with all of this. And, at the end of the day, I just really want to raise money for a good cause. For all of my streams from now until the end of the month, I will be collecting donations for this cause, and the cause's name is Coffee to the Front Lines. I created a video that is on the YouTube channel right now. Um, and if you want to learn more about it, I will clip out that portion where I talk about the charity or the organization, I should say. But basically, it's a good friend of mine is delivering food, coffee, drinks, and snacks to all the frontline workers during this pandemic. She's been doing it since March, and she just raising money so that she can continue doing it. I believe her original goal started at $500 back in March. She's been managed to and able to raise upwards of $27,000 for all of her efforts. And we talk about people who are putting their lives at risk on a daily basis during this time. She is definitely doing the same. But separately from that, she's also supporting local businesses. She's been able to team up with a lot of the local businesses to, keep them afloat and get the supplies that she needs to provide the frontline workers. So, if you ever feel so generous to donate, the link is above there. And definitely do donate. Any little bit will be greatly appreciated. I know times are tough. Don't feel like you are being forced to donate, but obviously, it would be great if you have the means to. So, moving forward and moving on, got a couple of great things to talk about today. Um, Before I continue, just like I do every time, um, you know, feel free to chat and chime in if you have a question or anything like that. If you do want to interrupt me during my flow, feel free to add a message to the donation that you're sending through. Otherwise, I will save some time during the end of the show to address any comments or questions you may have. And if you're watching this, please feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. It helps with the algorithms and helps me see if what I'm doing is meaningful to you guys, whether you're watching it live or in the replay. A little different scenario today, only because I do want to play nice with YouTube. So I have dedicated this live show to YouTube only. Normally, what I used to do is I would split my time between YouTube and Twitch. But today, and I'm gonna play it out and see how it works. But I think for the foreseeable future, the live podcast show will be on YouTube only exclusively. And then you can catch my game streams on Twitch. The link is provided in the description. But if you ever so want to check me out on Twitch, it's twitch.tv/ the Low-Key Geek. And today's gaming stream will feature my playthrough of the classic PC game Full Throttle. I will be playing it on the PlayStation 4 because they did come out with a remastered edition. But all of this is to celebrate the 15th anniversary of Full Throttle, the game. Again, I feel like I'm getting older by the day. All of these anniversaries that we're celebrating recently, and I'll get more into that in a bit too. So, moving on and keeping into kind of the discussion of, the frontline workers and those who are putting their lives on the line every day. I saw some really great news from the team over there at Funko. If you're familiar with Funko and Funko Pops, huge phenomenon that swept all of us in the collecting toy world, with their cute little renditions of classic characters from all types of genre. They announced this week that as a special thank you to all the frontline workers, they will be releasing these special Frontline Heroes Pops. I think this is an amazingly awesome idea, and I'm really happy that they have decided to do this. A lot of these are now available for pre-order, whether through the Funko site or through other toy retail outlets. But along with that, they did provide a nice donation to Global Giving. And I believe, let's see, just as I'm reading this here now, If you do pre-order this through Hot Topic and Box Lunch, they are giving all net proceeds from the sale of these pops to Global Giving's Coronavirus Relief Fund. So I believe pre-order tonight around 8 p.m. So go to Hot Topic, go to Box Lunch. You can also pre-order on Amazon and Entertainment Earth. So again, keep in mind that this is for a great cause, and I think it's important for us to recognize who the real heroes are, and those are the ones that are, like I said before, putting their lives on the line every day to make sure that not only those who are in need are taken care of, but making sure that everyone else remains safe out there. So again, great news all across the board, and I'm really happy that Funko is doing their part to help recognize and put some light on these true heroes. So moving on to the next thing. So I don't know if you remember or if you've been following, if you're like me and follow like Star Wars news, especially while the new movies have been coming out. But Colin Trevorrow, who is the director of Jurassic World, he was once tapped to direct the third and final film in the new trilogy that we're in now, which we now know as Rise of Skywalker. I guess because of creative differences or whatever the case is, he was then outed and released from directorial duties, which eventually fell back to J.J. Abrams. But he did have a script that was leaked out just I don't know how long ago it was, but I never read it, but based on what people were saying, the script seemed very interesting and might have given us a different movie altogether. And I think there was a lot of positive reviews about the script itself. So since we haven't got it fully fleshed out in celluloid form or in full movie form, someone attempted to at least try to provide a visual form of the leaked script, and that is Mr. Sunday Movies. So what they did over there is that they animated it for you based off of what they read from the script. And yeah, I was able to watch this earlier this week, and I thought not only is the animation very cute and very family friendly, but it does kind of give a nice visual representation of what his potential script could have looked like on the big screen. So Nerdist did a great write-up on this, and again, Mr. Sunday Movies has this available on YouTube for your viewing pleasure. Just like I do with every show, I will provide links in the updated description once the show is over so that you can check it out yourself. It's about, like, I think 5 to 6 minutes long, but again, it's a fun watch if you're interested to kind of see what could have been with Colin Trevorrow's Star Wars script there. So moving on to kind of more gaming news. Hold on one second here. So, couple of interesting things in gaming news, and again, I should start creating a separate segment called the "I'm Getting Old" segment, as you could see in the title of the stream today. But in the "I'm Getting Old" segment related to gaming today, PacMan turns 40 years old. It's kind of amazing, and that's not PacMan. There you go. Yeah, PacMan turns 40 today. 40 years ago today, the infamous little yellow round dot that likes to eat pellets and ghosts who are afraid was released out into the arcades and kind of gave huge breath to video games and video game culture. I remember as a kid, there is a very famous photo of myself. I believe I am 4 or 5 years old, rocking a Pac-Man baseball cap, one of those like Wrangler tees with a huge giant Pac-Man logo on it, because I was a huge fan of Pac-Man when I was a kid. Not only was it, popular because of the arcade game, But during that time in the 80s, they even had a Pac-Man cartoon, they had Pac-Man cereal, they had Pac-Man lunch boxes. Anything that you can get your hands on Pac-Man, they basically made and produced. So it was something that is very near and dear to my heart because of my childhood memories. But Pac-Man carried on ever since then, and it's one of those initial forays into gaming that a lot of people experience, whether it be in the arcades, on the PC, on your phone, on your home console. When the Atari first came out, usually was packed in, no pun intended, with Pac-Man. Um, but yeah, it's been 40 years, and I believe they're still reinventing how to play Pac-Man. In If you play games now, and you play games on your phone, there have been newer iterations of Pac-Man, kind of like competition Pac-Man, and new styles of gameplay. So they're still trying to do what they can to make Pac-Man relevant by reinventing how you play Pac-Man. So um, happy birthday, Pac-Man. It's been a fun ride so far, and here's to 40 more years there. So, next up, in kind of gaming related news, and something that I wasn't even aware about, but Cuphead. Cuphead, the extremely frustrating and difficult platform game that is kind of a throwback to the old cartoons that you saw back, I believe, in the 40s and 50s, just like the old Warner Brothers and Disney cartoons. Apparently, there is a Netflix show in the works. So, a work in progress version of what they have so far will be screened at the Annecy Animation Festival. I don't exactly have the dates of when that festival is, or if the footage will be available to view online. But it's nice to hear that things are still carrying on with this series. It'll be interesting to see how they're going to carry the look and feel of the game, because the game itself is gorgeous, and it does really feel like you're playing in an actual cartoon, the way it was kind of presented back in the day. Um, Despite it being extremely difficult at times, it's still an overall fun game. And apparently, Netflix is expected to release this series in January of 2021. So hopefully, we can see some footage, or at least stills, of how the animation is coming out. And it's always nice to know and see that people are still working despite Hollywood kind of being closed down at the moment. I do know they're starting to get ready to pick things back up and open up, but you know, there are people who aren't working, furloughed, lost their jobs. So at least I'm hoping that whoever's working on this production is being able to do so very well out of their homes. Um, and I'll get more into that type of my thoughts on that when I get to a topic later on. So, in other gaming news, The Last of Us 2, the anticipated sequel to the hit PlayStation 4 game, or I should say PlayStation game. It was originally released on the PlayStation 3. Um, they're now getting a limited edition Pro bundle. So um, I may have mentioned, and I think I did. I mentioned before in a previous podcast. Microsoft has done a really great job with creating these limited editions for their consoles and their controllers. They come out and they don't really discriminate on what they feel that they want to do and put together to release out there. Sony and PlayStation, on the other hand, has been very selective, and um, even though they may not support a lot of limited editions when it comes to controllers, they definitely do like to do special console releases to kind of maybe just help boost sales of their hardware. We definitely do see a lot more of this in Japan, but from time to time they do come out with these limited edition console releases in the US as well. But looks like they're putting one together for The Last of Us 2. Like I mentioned, it is a PS4 Pro console that you're getting in the special limited edition a makeup of Last of Us 2. It also comes obviously with a matching controller, a gold wireless headset, and a 2 terabyte hard drive. The controller itself will be made available for sale separately, which is great. But it will be released alongside the actual game release in on June 19. Pricing for the bundle will be $399.99, and the controller alone will be $64.99. So, as far as looks are concerned, it feels a little bit lackluster to me. Doesn't really scream out. Looks like there's like an etching on it, which kind of gives it this really cool look and feel. It does have the Last of Us branding in the front of the console. But when I compare it to other limited edition consoles that I've seen in the past, like the God of War limited edition, the Spider-Man limited edition, even like the Batman limited edition one that they released several years ago, those kind of screamed out a little bit more because of the colors and the graphics on it. The Spider-Man limited edition bundle is probably one of the better ones that I've ever seen because of the nice red coloring and the etching, or the photo of the Spider-Man logo really brilliantly on top of it. So this is very kind of like subtle. But if you're a huge fan of The Last of Us 2, or if you don't happen to have a PlayStation 4 Pro yet, this is actually a pretty decent bundle since you get a lot of things all together at once. So if you're in the market or you're interested, by all means, pick one up when it comes out, June 19th. Moving on to the next piece of news here. If you are a fan and player of Dragon Ball FighterZ or Dragon Ball FighterZ, a new DLC character was released this week, and now you can play as Ultra Instinct Goku. If you are a fan and if you have watched the more recent episodes of the Dragon Ball franchise, this is a new form that Goku takes form of, and now they released it for you to play within this fighting game. Now, it makes it really interesting too because they did release more recently Kefla, who is a brand new character that was introduced in the newer series. So now, because of the release of Ultra Instinct Goku, it also now unlocks a new dramatic finish since they had a legendary battle against each other. So I haven't seen it yet. I know there are videos online for it. I don't want to see the video. I kind of want to experience it myself, so I may just check it out when I get a chance to play it, maybe within the next week. And also, I think it'll just be good to kind of recap all the dramatic finishes that are in the game, because I don't know if you knew, but this was something that was actually brought to my attention a couple months ago, and I've been playing the game since last year. I didn't know that there were such things as dramatic finishes, and maybe that's just more on me because I wasn't really paying attention. But when I found out and I was starting to actually execute them, I thought it was a really awesome thing to see, especially with the way that the game itself looks, and you get to see these classic cinematic moments from the show come to play as you're playing the game. So it's definitely really awesome to check out in person while you're playing it. So if that is something that you like to play, or maybe you haven't played it, but maybe this edition now kind of piques your interest to give it a shot, by all means, check it out. It is a fun game. It's just a fighting game. Not much of a story mode there. There is a story mode, but it is very limited and somewhat repetitive, in my opinion. But if you have other friends who like to play it, great game to play online with each other, even though the lobby setup is sometimes confusing and complex. But once you get it to work, playing with your friends is a lot of fun, especially since most of us are stuck at home, not being able to go visit each other's houses and have like those gaming parties in person with everybody else. So definitely check it out if you have the chance. And I believe last on the list here for gaming related news is Final Fantasy 7 Remake, the big hit that came out in April, the game that I've been playing on my Twitch streams. News kind of released today, I believe today, but it it's been reported that it broke the franchise selling record for April for a launch release for Square Enix, and because of how well this game did, it really led really high record-breaking sales for April in gaming industry standards. So for April 2020, it's been reported that game sales topped $1.5 billion, which is a 73% increase compared to last year around the same time. And for those of you who follow games, especially gaming news and the industry as a whole, you would know that usually around this time is slow for video games. Usually, like May, June, that's when things start slowly picking up because, companies recognize that people are now out of school, graduating. They have summer breaks to really focus and play games. But to have such a huge record before that time is quite phenomenal. And 1.5 billion is nothing to shy away from. And again, this is one of the reasons why they would compare popularity between games and movie in the movie industry, who does better, who pulls in more bucks. And there has been a huge argument that gaming has surpassed the movie industry as a whole, and here's a great example of that there. So kudos to Final Fantasy VII Remake. I am still playing it. You can catch me playing it on my Twitch streams every Monday, 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time there, and it's been a lot of fun. I feel like I'm getting very close to the end, so it'll be interesting to see how the first part of this multi-chapter remake will play out. So very excited there. So moving on to more TV and movie news. The week kind of started off with a surprise, something that I think took a lot of us by surprise, and that is Ruby Rose, who has been playing Batwoman for the WB series, and they completed their season one, has bowed out and decided not to return for season two. In an interview, she said that it was a very difficult decision for her to make, but she cherishes and appreciates her experience working for the show and playing the character, but she decided not to do it any further, and it's kind of baffled a lot of us here. Kudos to her for making such a decision if she feels like this is something that's necessary, but it was surprising, and I don't think there was any real backlash with having her cast as a prominent role of as Batwoman. Was a very important thing for a lot of people because Batwoman kind of portrays the first like lesbian superhero character, especially on the screen. So not sure what's going to happen moving forward. There are rumors that she possibly decided to bow out because of injuries that she suffered and experienced during the filming of season one. Maybe that's not something that she really wanted to repeat, but we'll see what happens, and we'll see what will happen when they decide to recast the role moving forward. So again, definitely something that caught a lot of us by surprise when that news surfaced earlier this week. Moving on to other movie news, for those of you who are a fan of the Spider Universe and what Sony is doing with Spider-Man, in kind of surprising news again, or maybe not so much so, there have been reports that there is a Madam Web movie in the works. Madam Web is kind of like this background ancillary character who doesn't really see a lot of action. She's kind of like I don't know if you would call her like a prophet or like someone who is kind of similar to like the Watcher or the Beyonder, and kind of like is a puppet master behind the scenes or whatever the case is. But apparently they're working on a movie there. They hired Jessica Jones's director S.J. Clarkson to direct the movie. If you watch the Netflix show Jessica Jones, you will remember that the feel of the movie is a little bit different from your Marvel movies and Marvel TV shows. not so heavy on the action, but very heavy on story and kind of mysticism of what's really happening on the back end and in the background. So it'll be interesting to see her spin on it, or just the spin of this character and movie in general, and how it's going to play out within their own Spider universe. As you know, Morbius is coming out with Jared Leto. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. We have Venom that is within the universe, and they're working on a sequel there. So how that's all gonna tie into Spider-Man, especially the Spider-Man that does occasionally show up in Marvel, in the Marvel movies, how that's all gonna tie together. I mean, are we gonna ever see these characters in Marvel movies? Well, the Marvel Studio movies, well, we don't know. It all depends on the relationship with Marvel Studios and Sony, but that is something that they're currently working on. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out there. Now, something that dropped yesterday, a highly anticipated and somewhat controversial, not because of the movie, but because of the decisions of the director. Tenant, Christopher Nolan's upcoming movie, released their third trailer yesterday. Um, and something that really stood out to me was, I mean, number one, the trailer itself kind of gives you more insights on how the movie looks like, and it looks like another Christopher Nolan. What's happening here? I'm still not sure of what the main story plot line is. Very mysterious, very intriguing. The same feeling I had when I saw the trailers of Inception, and of course, when the movie came out, I was pleasantly pleased and surprised on how well it was done. You know, Christopher Nolan pretty much hasn't really released what I would consider a stinker. I mean, a lot of people would kind of question some of his releases for some reason. The movie that is most controversial, the name of the movie kind of escapes my mind right now. But hold on one second as I pull up his IMDb. It is Interstellar. God, why couldn't I remember that? But yeah, Interstellar was probably one of his more debated movies. A lot of people either liked it or didn't. I actually enjoyed it. I liked it quite a bit. But of course, Christopher Nolan is probably best known for his Dark Knight trilogy. I, of course, know him from Memento and The Prestige. Those are two great movies that, if you haven't seen them, I highly recommend them. And of course, Inception and Dunkirk that came out in 2017. So, Tenant looks like it kind of plays with time, not time travel, but time manipulation. You see a lot of instances where the main character, several characters, kind of see things before they happen and then live them out in reverse. So I don't know exactly how that plays within the plot, or how even that is possible, but it is very, very. It looks very interesting, very like nutty, but in a good Christopher Nolan way. But like I said, the one thing that really stood out to me is at the end, they made it a huge point to call out that it's coming to cinemas. And the reason why I say it's controversial because of the director's decisions is Christopher Nolan has stood ground and saying that this movie is definitely going to be released in theaters, and you can only see it when it first comes out in theaters. You know, a lot of other studios are contemplating the video on demand releases because of theaters being shut down across the nation and certain parts of the world. But Christopher Nolan did not back down at once whenever he was asked if he would consider the same. He's always been an advocate and fan of cinema, and he really puts in a lot of work in the movies that he's involved in, and he really shows his appreciation of the movie going experience, which I do appreciate of him as well. And that's one of the reasons why I like him as a director, and I like a lot of his movies. But in this day and age where it is uncertain as to how safe it will be to go back to the movie theater, especially as things start slowly opening up, you know, who knows how that's going to affect the results of his movie when it comes out. Right now, it's slated to release on July 17th. Now, within this new trailer, there wasn't any date. In the last trailer that we saw, it mentioned the July 17th release date. Here, it just says coming to cinemas. So, could this mean that maybe he's contemplating or rethinking about the actual release date? Maybe he'll push it back a little bit in hopes that he can stick to his coming to cinemas only. Who's to say? Who's to know? But I'm sure there'll be more to come. But I believe that is the one thing that really stood out to me as far as this new trailer. So I'm looking forward to seeing it, just like I look forward to all of his other movies. But then again, I don't know if I myself feel like I'll be ready to actually go into a movie theater once they really start opening up here in New York. Now, would I watch it in a drive-in? Maybe. That might be something that I might be interested in doing, especially the technology for drive-ins these days are a lot different. The picture quality is better, as best as you can get from an outdoor screen, and the sound quality is dependent on your car. So I'm lucky enough to have a pretty updated car with a pretty decent sound system. So that could prove to be somewhat interesting for myself to catch, if I want to see this outside of my home. So we'll see what happens. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of news coming out about this as we get closer to the release date, and it'll be interesting to see. So, and one of the main topics, obviously, that hit this week and for myself here is the fans have finally been answered. The cries of release the Snyder cut has been fully answered by Jeff Snyder himself. And did I just say Jeff Snyder? Oh my God. Zack Snyder. Jeff Snyder is actually a person who works over at Collider, and he's also a big participant in the Schmoes movie trivia Schmodown. So I must have had him in my head. But Zack Snyder, moving on. Zack Snyder finally made the announcement that he is there. First of all, there is a Snyder cut version of Justice League, and yes, he will be finally releasing it, and releasing it on HBO Max in 2021. I talked about this not in pure depth, but if you watch the Nerds to Men podcast on Wednesdays at 10 p.m., myself and Paul from Paul Programs, talked about this. And, I don't know if I would say I had mixed feelings about it. It is very interesting and intriguing news because I am curious to see like how his version of the movie will look like and play out when you watch it. One of the interesting things about this is that apparently he finally came to an agreement with Warner Brothers to work on this, and they're putting in an extra $30 million to kind of complete his vision of the movie, which they already did a lot of filming of, but obviously a lot of post-production wasn't done, and they may even bring back some actors to do some reshoots if needed. But he's working with Warner Brothers. They got the money. They're going to put the finishing touches on it, and it's going to get its release on HBO Max in 2021. It's rumored that it might be 4 hours long, and he's debating whether or not he wants to release it episodically, just like how Quentin Tarantino did when he released The Hateful Eight on Netflix. But then I started reading a lot of the fan reactions, the critic reactions, and their feedbacks and all this, and I started like to really think about it too. And I guess there are like good and bad points about this. Let's talk about the good first. The good is, a lot of us like always have that curiosity of how a movie would look like if changes weren't made or if the studio wasn't fully involved. We have, especially in recent years, had many stories come out that a director's vision was kind of altered or affected because of studio decisions, and many directors have come out and even talked about how they were unhappy and forced to do things that they didn't really want to do, or cut a movie a certain way that they didn't want to cut. So we would have to later wait for a potential Blu-ray behind the scenes or a special edition to come out with a director's cut. So it's great that we get to finally see this, especially with the years of speculation and rumors, and hearing the actors talk about the Snyder cut being out there and available, and the rumors that it might actually be much better than what we got to finally see. So it's good that we finally get to kind of see the pure vision of the original director that was attached to this movie. Number two, it's also great because it allows people within the Hollywood industry to actually work right now. They secured funding for this, $30 million for post production work and all that, and it's great that now, especially like I mentioned, in this time that we're in, people can actually work out of their homes and work on putting the finishing touches of this movie. Um, so whether you're a graphics designer or artist or touch-up person, or your audio, you know all this kind of stuff you could do from home. And we've seen like little bits of this happening across the industry, with like several releases being done or several additional production work being done from home. So I'm happy that there are people that can actually work on this movie to prep it for its release in 2021. Um, and I'm happy for the fans. I'm happy for the fans who really just want to see a different version of a movie, whether it be good or bad. Who knows? But at least we get another option. Now that goes into my negative spin too, where should fans help truly dictate how a movie is released or what version of a movie we see? And that's been a huge debate, in Hollywood and fandom and geek culture and all that stuff like that. You know, if you ask a lot of people, they will say that fans should have a voice and should push studios and content creators to adhere to what they want and what they see. But if you talk to a lot of other people, they'll say that's a very dangerous slippery slope, because um, what fans dictate or what they ask for is not always the best thing, and it's not always quality too. The fan service is something that has been talked about a lot, and there are people out there who do adhere and kind of bless us with a little bit of fan service, but I don't think it's something that should be 100% supported. um, every creator has their vision, and they should be allowed to kind of express their vision, and the fans should accept it for that, whether it falls within what their ideologies are or not, or how they feel certain characters should be handled. um, but another negative spin on this too is what I just said. Directors should be able to express their true feeling and their true vision. Now, if they're not allowed to, do they have the right to kind of, pressure studios, pressure other media outlets to kind of release what their visions are? Because the same thing could be said, as I said, for fan service. Sometimes the director's vision is not always the best either. And interference, whether it be by studios or producers or whoever else, sometimes is necessary. Like, it's, as someone like myself who is a content creator or recently became a content creator, or I've worked in the video game industry, I've worked in advertising. Sometimes my thoughts and feedback is not always the most accurate or the better ones. Like, it's, as someone who's looking at it or who's been working on something solely by myself, you need those second set of eyes. You need a third person to kind of look at what you're doing and give you that feedback. I ask you guys all the time when I put these shows together or when I do my videos, provide your feedback. I want to know what you guys think. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What do you guys want to see more of? And I need to adhere and listen to that stuff so that I can better myself, so that I can provide the best content that will gel and sync with you guys. But if we have directors just like streamline their ways and kind of just headstrong and like, nope, this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to do it and that's it, that may not always be a good thing, especially when they're representing a huge property like the Justice League. I mean, you have um, 6 characters, main steady characters, that is being, controlled and managed by a major corporation that's been around in the lexicon of pop culture for many, many, many years. Um, does one person have the right to dictate how their stories go, and without consulting others, and especially the main owners there? So again, this could be a debate that I can go off on, or I could have with like one of you guys or with several people about the pros and cons here. So, does something like this set that new precedence that, hey, if I'm working on something, fuck all y'all, I could do whatever the hell I want, because I will have the fans supporting me and standing by me, and it doesn't matter what you guys decide to do. Release something, I'm going to eventually release my vision, and there's nothing you guys can do about it. Or I'll get someone else to agree to help provide me that platform. Again, it's tough to say what's right or wrong, or if it's very circumstantial here. So let's see if there is any kind of ripple effect to this moving forward. Um, for myself, my personal views on this is that I think it's great that Zack Snyder can finally put the rumors to rest and state, yes, there is a version of the movie that I was working on. And, the version that you saw wasn't it. I think all of us knew that already. And I want you guys to see at least what I was trying to put out there for you. I just showed you earlier in the show Colin Trevorrow's ideas of what a potential Star Wars movie could have looked like. Um, was that going to be a better movie? We don't know. We can judge on our own when we watch it in animated form or we read the script or whatever the case is. But there are other people who made these decisions because they think that it's going to represent their property in a better light. Now, again, as fans, we can agree to go forward with that, or we could have our arguments and debates. But, again, for myself, I'm, happy for him to do that. I'm happy that I will finally get to see what the talk is all about here. I don't know if the movie's going to be any better. It might still suck. Because Justice League was a very bland movie, and it shouldn't have been. It had some key moments in there, but it was extremely bland. And I came out of that movie not pumped, not excited, nothing of the sort. So, what will happen? How's it going to look? Tune in 2021. We still have a lot of time to wait for that. And of course, you'll have to have HBO Max to see it. So, however, I will say it definitely got me closer and more interested in subscribing to HBO Max because this is something that's going to be a huge event that I definitely want to see and be a part of. But HBO Max launches next week. I will do a separate review of all the pieces of content that is going to be releasing with that platform, and there's a lot. And it's already intriguing. So stay tuned for that review there. Cool. So that pretty much ends the TV and movie news. Now, there are some news that I wanted to share here when it comes to Japanese culture. And again, it shouldn't be a surprise to you guys on how much I am a fan of Japanese culture. And, I mentioned time and time again that I consider Japan to be my second home. But some interesting news from this week. So, if you hear this, a lot of you will automatically recognize this right away. And that is the intro to the famous Neon Genesis Evangelion. And the reason why I bring this up is because its creator, Hideki Anno, celebrates his 60th birthday today. So, happy birthday to Mr. Anno there, Anno-san. Now, a lot of people have their different opinions on this series, but I think it is definitely one of those groundbreaking anime series that came out way back in the day. And if you haven't seen it, there are versions of it available on Netflix. Controversial because there are some edits there that maybe do not gel with a lot of fans, but at least it's a platform that you could get to check it out on. I do highly recommend it. although I will warn you guys that it does get really weird towards the ending of the series. It's been heavily reported that Mr. Ano-san not lost his mind, but he definitely has a different opinion and view and outlook of the world, and it kind of played in to his works there. So, do watch it, enjoy it for what it is. Just keep that in mind that you may start to like it in the beginning, and then your opinion may change the later you get into it. And then there have been several movies that have been released for it, for that series. Some are good, some aren't as great, or some are just confusing and baffling, and you don't know what in the world you're watching. But again, Evangelion is a huge staple in those who are fans of anime and Japanese pop culture. That opening theme song is hugely famous, and has been sung in many karaoke bars um, in Japan and here in the States as well. So, happy birthday, Ano-san. He was also the director of Shin Godzilla, one of the more recent Godzilla movies. So, he's active in being creative and doing what he can to put his vision out there. So, whether or not he's going to be able to complete and finish the Evangelion franchise or series is yet to be determined, because we've been waiting, I think it's movie 3 for some time now. So, again, we will see what will happen there. So, again, happy birthday to Ano-san. And then, in something that I found extremely cute, and you know, something that I really wish I was in Japan right now to experience. But for those of you who have been there, or at least know about Japan and its landmarks and many structures that you can visit, the Tokyo Skytree recently launched a commemorative kind of experience within the Skytree confounds, and it's their kind of tribute to Final Fantasy VII. Basically, it's like a special movie that they play within their structure, as you could see here in the video. It's something that I'm sure in person looks amazing and fantastic, and it's again one of their ways to commemorate the launch of Final Fantasy VII Remake. This is something that is currently on display in the Tokyo Skytree. Right now, I don't know if it is open to the public or not. But this is something that you can check out. But what they did is that they made this video that kind of shows you the entire sequence that they're rotating there, free to watch on YouTube. And I will make sure to, again, provide the link for the YouTube video in the description. But it's for a limited time only. You can watch this full video that they released up until 11 a.m. on June 1st Japanese time. So definitely check it out. It looks amazingly awesome to me, and the movie that they play runs through a lot of the Final Fantasy lore and releases, whether it's games or movies. So it's extremely awesome. Again, I'm a little jealous because I wish I was there. I've been to the Skytree multiple times, and if you ever do go to Tokyo, I highly recommend you visiting, because it's probably one of the best views of the city that you can see, and you can see how vast and huge and enormous this city of Tokyo really is, especially when you compare it to the likes of New York, and so on and so forth. So definitely check that out, and again, great video there to watch, and kind of makes you wish and feel like you were there, or at least you get to pretend like you're there. Put it up on a nice big screen and just kind of like turn the lights out and say, hey, I'm at the Skytree at night. So the last bit of Japanese related culture news here, and something that I was really happy to hear about when it was announced today. So Japan Cuts. Japan Cuts is this really huge Japanese movie festival that is held at Japan Society here in New York. It is held every year, and I've mentioned on my show several times how much I appreciate and love going to Japan Society, and this was one of the main reasons why. Japan Cuts is a film festival that I've been attending now for the last 10 years. And with this pandemic that we're in now, I was like a little worried that what are they going to do this year? Is it ever going to happen? Is it going to be, severely postponed? But they announced today that they are going to carry on with the festival, but they're doing it all online, which is great news. The festival will be held from July 17th to the 30th. Um, Go to japansociety.org for more information and details, or to be kept in the loop of how they're going to be doing this, because I'm sure there's going to be some sort of um, ticket ticket system that they will implement for this. As you saw me cover on Monday when I do the box office numbers, there are certain theaters across the U.S. that have their own online ticketing system so that you could watch these movies online through a certain provider or something that they manage on their own. So I don't know if they're going to be planning to team up with somebody to help them facilitate the screening of these movies online. But again, a lot of the movies that I found myself loving from Japan were introduced at this film festival. And they do this really great thing too, where they allow you to sometimes see movies before it even hits Japan, or shortly after it's released in Japan. So you can feel as if you're seeing this movie in real time with the Japanese audience, and it's a really great experience. So I'm looking forward to what kind of movies they have on the docket for this year. Keep your eyes open, because I will more than likely be doing a lot of reviews for what I watch from Japan Cuts this year. So definitely check it out. And now, with them being able to do this online, it opens up the festival to a much wider audience. So anywhere within the United States, you'll be able to experience this festival for the first time if you haven't attended it here in person in New York. So great news there. I'm really excited and happy for them, and I'm really looking forward to see what they pull up for this year's lineup. So closing out the show here, basically what I do every Friday is I like to talk about what is there to watch this weekend. There's so much things to kind of consume when you compare it to what's available on network television, cable TV, Netflix, Hulu, and the like, YouTube. So I kind of like to give my review of what's free to watch, and I kind of call it my freebies to watch this weekend. But before I get into that, there are some notable things that released on Netflix that you might be interested in. And one of them is they released season 6 of The Flash on Netflix this week. So if you were a fan of the Flash TV series and you are behind or you need to catch up, season 6 is now available for you to view on Netflix. Myself, I kind of fell off of The Flash after season 3. I think they were getting a little bit too wacky with like the multi dimensions, and how the one mistake that I really don't appreciate is how everyone eventually gets superpowers on the show, and now that one person that you were following is no longer special or like the main hero of the show. So but if you're a fan and you've been following it and you need to catch up, or you want to relive season 6, do so. You can do so on Netflix. But the major release on Netflix that actually came out today is a brand new movie, and it's called Lovebirds. Lovebirds is a movie that stars Issa Rae and Kamal Nanjiani. So basically, it's a couple that is unintentionally embroiled in a murder mystery. So basically, their journey is to clear their names, but their adventure in doing so takes them from one extreme and hilarious circumstance to the next. They must figure out how they and their relationship can survive the night. So it's directed by Michael Showalter, and it's categorized as a romantic comedy. So, Kamal Nanjiani is fun to watch on the big screen. If you ever seen The Big Sick, he did a really great job in that movie. If you saw the first season of The Twilight Zone, the first initial pilot episode there was really well done, and he did a great job there. And he is going to be in his very own Marvel movie with a group of other fine, talented people when the Eternals finally come out. So check out Lovebirds if this is something that you find interesting to put in your queue. But moving on, let's say you have nothing to watch on Netflix. You really don't want to spend the money on, renting or buying anything on demand, and you're looking for something free to kill the time. YouTube is a great place to go where you can find a bunch of free movies if you're okay with watching ads being interjected from time to time. But I have three selections for you for the freebies movies to watch this weekend. And number one on the list is a little movie called Dirty Work. Dirty Work is a movie that came out in 1998, and it stars Norm Macdonald, Artie Lang, Chevy Chase, and my all-time favorite, Don Rickles. It's definitely a ridiculous movie that some of you may find funny, some of you may not. I find the movie quite hilarious myself. But if you want to know basically what's happening here in this movie, Mitch, who is the main character played by Norm Macdonald, needs to come up with $50,000 really fast. The only problem is that he can't seem to hold down a job. His group of friends, they're always like these like really bozos who do whatever they do to ruin their situation. So Mitch does find a way to make money by exploiting the only talent that they have, and that's by opening a revenge for hire business, and that is where the hilarity ensues. And Chris Farley also has a great little cameo in this movie. His scenes are quite hilarious, in my opinion. Again, it involves a prostitute, but I'll leave it at that. But again, if this type of humor kind of like gels with you, I kind of compare it to the same humor that you see in some of like the old 90 comedies that came out there, like your Super Bad and Old School. If you're a huge fan of that Chappelle movie, my goodness, I can't even remember the name of the movie right now. Hold on, Chappelle movie. Half Baked. Yes, Half Baked. If you were like a huge fan of Half Baked, I am a huge fan of Half Baked, then this is a movie that I think will work well for you. So check it out. It's for free on YouTube. The next free movie on the list here is Into the Blue, a 2005 movie starring Jessica Alba and what's the Walker guy's name? Oh my gosh. My mind is like, I think what happened yesterday, the Disney bots got into my brain. Paul Walker. Paul Walker of Fast and Furious fame. They star in this kind of suspense thriller type of movie. Basically, it's young vacationers expecting to have a memorable time diving find themselves in deep trouble with a drug lord when they come upon the illicit cargo of a sunken airplane. Paul Walker and Jessica Alba lead the cast in this underwater thriller packed with action and surprises. I've seen many clips of this movie. I never watched the movie from beginning to end, but it is, it looks like a pretty decent movie if you are looking for something with a lot of action and suspense in there. For me personally, the main reason why I ended up watching parts of this movie, and if I ever do consider to watch the full thing, is because I just find Jessica Alba to be extremely stunning. And this is definitely one of those movies that really highlight that. I'm sure for a lot of you females out there, or men, Paul Walker is another fine specimen to look at. Unfortunately, he did leave us at a very early age. So it'll just be nice to kind of watch one of his pieces of work out there. outside of the Fast and Furious franchise. So if this sounds like something interesting for you to watch, it is free on YouTube. And last on my list, and this is more of a personal entry here, because as a kid and as an action of 80s action movies, as a fan of 80s action movies, this is a series that was always near and dear to my heart, especially since there was a time in the 80s where martial arts, and more specifically ninjas, were huge. So for free to watch on YouTube, you can watch American Ninja, starring Michael Dudikoff. He plays a character called Joe Armstrong, a one-man fighting machine. Serving in the army to avoid prison, Joe finds himself battling the deadly Black Star Order, as well as corrupt military leaders in order to bring down an illegal arms sale. This movie is a typical 80s action type of movie. They eventually made a series out of this, or I don't know if it was the vice versa, where the series became a series of movies. Whatever the case is, American Ninja, awesome. If you're a fan of like the Schwarzenegger movies, the Stallone movies, if you remember The Perfect Weapon, if you love Jean-Claude Van Damme, this is definitely one of those type of movies that will definitely put you back into that feel and nostalgia of classic 80s action movies. So definitely do check it out. It's, again, one of my most memorable movies and series out there, especially when you mention action in the 80s. So it's for free, and it's available on YouTube for you to watch. So again, take this all with a grain of salt. I'm not trying to recommend gems here, guys. I just find these like really, really particularly interesting that you could watch for free if you have nothing else to watch, especially since, you know, we've been all in lockdown mode for the past 2 months. So if it sounds somewhat interesting for you, or if you want something to play in the background, by all means, check it out. So, I mean, as far as other things to watch this weekend, I mean, The Last Dance is over. It was a great documentary series, and if you haven't seen it yet, you can do so. It is available on the TNT app, I think. You could watch that if you have cable. You could just log in, I think, with your cable account. And I did watch episode 1 of Snowpiercer, and my thoughts on it are kind of in the middle right now. I don't hate it, but I don't overly love it either. But I am still curious to see how they're going to carry on with this series. So I'll provide my thoughts on that maybe separately, whether it be a separate video or, you know, once the season's over, depending on how far I personally get in the season, I may provide a kind of review and thoughts and my thoughts on all that. But all that being said, wow, the hour went by really quick. So that's the hour, and that's the show. So guys, thank you again for tuning in, whether you watched live or you're going to be watching on the replay. Find me again Mondays and Fridays. Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm on Twitch Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. My usual schedule is Mondays from 12 to 5 Eastern Standard Time. Wednesday repeats that. And then Friday, at least today, 8 p.m. to midnight, and possibly next week too. So today, full throttle, PlayStation 4 classic retro gaming there. I will be doing that, so join me there. And please, if you can, make a donation, coffee to the front lines. Let's help support great people doing great things. So until next time, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, be good to one another, wash your hands, wear a mask, be careful this weekend, and overall just be good and make a memorable weekend out of it. So I will catch you next time. Thanks, guys.